featured visual artist. And finally, we have Tosin Noel, a writer and designer and an entrepreneur in the Nigerian art space. Thank you all so much for joining us today. It really is a pleasure to have you with us. So I'd like to start simple. In the world today, art is digital. Art systems and processes are also digital. You can paint from your seat. You can buy art from where you are. You can exhibit. In fact, you can auction digitally from anywhere in the world today. So I would like to go to our speakers after they've given us a bit of an introduction into themselves. Starting with Mathew first. Can you please give us an introduction and also talk about what you think the general impact of technology is on the art industry today?
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mathew Oyedele. I'm a curator and an art historian. I work from Lagos, Nigeria. So looking at art and technology, we can't underestimate or overemphasize the impact of technology in terms of the transformation it has had on the art industry in the last few years. I mean, a few years ago, for you to actually sell your work as an artist, you had to physically take the works to the galleries for them to see your work. That's on the part of the artist. And God help you, if you were not living in Lagos at that time, you would have to spend a lot of money to transport yourself and your work down to Lagos to show galleries who may or may not buy your work, and you end up going back home broke. Maybe the artist had borrowed a lot of money with the hope of selling. I've had cases of artists who were beaten by rain with their works. We've had cases of artists whose works were lost in transit just because they were trying to get their works to galleries for the art dealers and the galleries to see their works, appreciate them, and actually patronize them at that time. But now everything is changing with the use of technology. You can just post your work on the social media, and then you would attract collectors and patrons across the globe, locally and internationally. Now you can do, artists' lives are literally changing just by DMs on Instagram. You can pitch your works as an artist to galleries via emails without walking physically to the galleries. Now there is a lot of accessibility. There is a lot of, for the lack of a better word, simplicity in the way people engage and encounter art. People see works first on the internet before they walk into galleries. Now there are virtual exhibitions everywhere. There are virtual art auctions everywhere now. So it makes it much more accessible and much more democratized in a way. So we can't really downplay the impact of technology in the art industry at the moment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mathew, for that introduction. I think people may forget, because we're in the modern world today, people may forget that artists one time had to physically take their works to galleries, or that could be beaten in the rain with their work. So thank you very much. So I'm going to come to Yemisi. So from your experience in the art industry, how has technology influenced or transformed the art industry? Not just in terms of what Matthias has explained, in terms of making it easy and making the access available to everyone, everywhere in the world, but can you just talk on how, from your experience, how technology has influenced the art industry?
All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon again, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here. My name is Oluwayemisi Akingbola. I have a background in broadcast media, which means that I was able to pick up some. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
All right. Which means that I picked up some skills along the way. And so by the time I started fully publishing my artworks, I had the advantage of somebody who had interacted with technology in other fields and who is able to bring that to bear. My work as an artist is quite abstract. and I introduce sound installation with my paintings, such that every story that I explore comes with 8D sound installation. And that's not all. I'm currently experimenting with virtual reality and all of that, but I can't get into the details of that because it is still work in progress. But the reason why I'm saying all of this is to say this. Apart from what Matthew has mentioned, which is quite fantastic, by the way, considering the fact that before you had to transcend long distances, in very hazardous journeys that usually did not yield fruit. Apart from the fact that technology makes it easier for you to have access to a global stage where you can present your work, whether or not you are in that location, what I find fascinating about, the ease of access that technology has given artists is that it allows you to experiment. It gives you bigger platforms. It gives you the opportunity to mix and match. All right. It gives you the for lack of a better word, it gives you the right, the, so to speak, temerity to test the waters. You want to, okay, traditional art forms, you would hear, oh, pencil on paper, charcoal on paper, acrylic on paper, oil on canvas, etc., etc., sculpture rather, etc., etc. But now with technology, you can actually 3D map a sculpture and turn it into something that is quite interactive. Right now with technology, you can add interactive sound to artworks in such a way that people, the audience that you are presenting to, become a part of the work. Like there are just 1,010,000,000 ways that technology gives you options to try. And in my experience as an artist, my ability to bend my own voice into all sorts of things and add all sorts of things to it and produce 8D sound that is an art in itself. I would always say that even if you're not looking at my artworks as in physical paintings, and the only one you have opportunity to listen to is the sound, you would be awed at how much work goes into that. So in my experience, I believe that technology gives you more leverage. It gives you more windows to try new things. So that's my submission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yemisi, for that answer. Yeah, I was even going to touch on some of your visual works. In the next question, we're going to come back to that, but thank you very much. So Tosin, so I'm going to come to you. So as a writer and as a designer, not necessarily a paint artist, how from your experience, how has technology influenced the art industry from your own view?
Hi everyone, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. I would say that watching art or watching technology really transform the industry has been really interesting. One of the things I've been studying and thinking about for a while is how art is essentially a message, but technology is the medium via which the message is shared. And so it's important to understand that, for example, the first oil painting was a technological innovation. The first wooden automata was a technological innovation. So if you think about it, art and technology are essentially two sides of the same coin. They engage in dance. In my work, I use 3D modeling, I use animation, Blender, so that's sound, that's lighting, but I also 3D print a lot of sculptures, and I use Arduino in order to add interactivity to those sculptures. So whether it's sound to make things touch sensitive, or the use of spatial audio, there's a lot of different ways whereby I've engaged with technology both experimentally and as a practice to pass on a message or to demonstrate a goal or perspective. But yeah, I would definitely say that technology is transforming art in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of different ways to define technology as well. So it's digital technology, financial technology, mechanical technology, electrical technology, chemical or material technology. And so we kind of have this definition of technology being digital and its influence on art being in a certain kind of way. But there's a lot of different ways to interpret technology and how it's transforming the art market today. I'll stop there for now.
Okay, thank you, Tosin, for that great answer. I just want to recall, did you say art is the message and technology is the medium? I'm not sure if I got
Yes,
that.
I did. Art is the message, technology is the medium.
Medium, all right.
Sure.
If we all leave this call with that slogan, I think we have achieved our aim for this call. But thank you, Tosin. So, Matthew, so I'm going to come back to you now. And I'd like you to speak, I guess, from the business side, from the curatorial side, as to how galleries, businesses, how can they use technology to improve their practices, to make life easier for the artists that are bringing the works to them and things like that.
Okay, thank you for the question. So, for both sides, let me speak on both sides. For artists, they can leverage technology in a lot of ways, and that's pretty much part of the things that we preach whenever we are talking about, whenever we have artist branding and portfolio building workshop. So there's a lot of intentionality that has to be put in how artists brand themselves on the internet. Talking about digital footprints. So I have a very funny example. Let me use Facebook. You have an artist who would send you a friend request, and then you check the bio, you see visual artist. By the time you scroll through the artist timeline, the first 5 posts, 5 flyers or images you would see are church revival posters. Do you understand? How do you want an art dealer or an art gallery to take you serious? Because whether you like it or not, to an extent, you are profiled by your digital footprints. You understand? So that branding, yeah, artists have to be very, very intentional about what they post, how they post their work. You can't post your work with blurry pictures and you want to be calling millions of prizes on such works. Do you understand? So for artists have to be intentional on what they put out. For galleries also, galleries are leveraging a lot of these technologies. Gone are those days where galleries have to put pen to paper to document all the works in their collection. Right now, they have a lot of apps at their disposal. Vatican is one of those platforms where galleries can keep their collection, they can track the sales, issue invoice, and the rest. Now there are Art Galleria, there is Tessera. All those platforms help galleries to catalog their works. And galleries also uses this platform for digital sales, digital exhibitions. So it helps them to connect with diverse audiences. And we can't also forget the role of data analytics on Instagram. When galleries make a post, they see the reach, the engagement. So this helps them to actually reinvent their marketing strategies and their approach to how they engage their audience. So all this goes into how artists and galleries can leverage the internet to actually expand and enhance their practice and their audience engagement and the rest. Let me stop here for now.
Yes, thank you, Matthew, for that lovely answer. Okay, so EMC, I'm going to come back to you. I know you said that the exhibition that you just had, you had visual elements in it. I know that people that came, they had to use headphones, they had to listen while they were interacting with the art. So please, can you speak to how artists can utilize technology to expand their reach and even improve the quality of their work? What ways can they do that?
All right, thank you very much. I would not pretend. I would not pretend that I have 100% how would I say it now? 100% knowledge on how you can leverage technology. However, the little I know, I would share, because I believe that this is a platform where we're all guided to have these conversations and share ideas. My work is right now heavy with both the visual elements and the auditory elements. That's the sound. However, I believe that there are things like what's it called now? I'm trying to remember the word now, and for some reason it's jumping around my head. When I do remember, it's something mapping, something mapping. I would come back to it. Now, there are ways that, let me take a muralist, for example. There are ways that you can project the artwork that you want to put on a wall as a muralist. There are ways that you can actually project it that helps you with better precision. Say, for instance, you have drawn or you sketched your work on Illustrator or any of these design tools, and you have done that, and then you can project it on the wall. Excuse me, please. Yeah. Sorry, I'm in a conference hall and people are walking in. I'm sorry. So anyway, so you have drawn out the mural on Illustrator or any of the design tools. There's a way you can actually project that on the wall and just sketch line by line. That helps your work and gives you better precision. That's one. I have seen videos and pictures of artists who have found a way. It's called Adreno. I don't know if anyone has heard of it. They found a way to use sound to paint. So there's a program they would write, they would code, they would write all the code, they would program it and all of that. And then they will hook the spray cans to these small computers, small machines that for every note that you play on the system, it presses, the button, it presses the nozzle, and then the spray paint comes out and all of that. That's another use case. There are 1,010 ways. The big challenge that I find with using technology in this part of the world is that we are not very explorative as much as we should be. We are stuck in the ones that we have. And so we're finding it quite difficult to explore other options and avenues and how it can be better. So what we know is a little bit limited. For instance, I don't know of any Nigerian artist, myself included, that has learned coding just for the sake of integrating it in art, right? So, and you see, I would like to say this at this point before I proceed. The reason why there's a lot of noise about AI art, that AI art is going to disrupt the market and the economy for artists, is because we are not exploring enough. We're not exploring as much as we should. That's why people who don't even have any experience with a paintbrush or a pencil can just sit down and write a prompt with AI, and Mind Valley would churn out something and they'd be like, oh, they've drawn art and all of that. It's because we as artists, we are usually quite comfortable in our cocoons. We're quite comfortable with what we know, with the materials that we're exploring. We don't usually think about how we can explore further. So to answer your question after my long rigmarole, I would say that one of the best ways that artists can integrate technology, and technology is not, I'm trying to go beyond what Mathew said about how you present yourself on social media, how you interact with art marketplace apps and platforms. I'm going to go on a limb out here and say that think about user experience. And I say user experience in terms of audience interaction this time around. What do you want your audience to feel? Usually when we paint and we paint on canvas, that's about it, right? But there's supposed to be an experience. There's supposed to be something transformative. There's supposed to be something that transcends what the eyes can see. So what are you doing to carry the emotions that you felt when you were creating the body of work? What are you doing to carry that to your exhibition in such a way that whether or not you're there, people can interact with it and still understand and still feel what you felt? Okay. And this is where we now come in with things like installations. What is your TV doing if it's not adding to the value of your exhibition? What is it doing in your house if it's just there? It's not adding value. As an artist, what technological skill have you learned? And please don't come and tell me digital marketing. Okay, have you learned how to code a little? Have you learned how to design digitally? Have you learned how to draw your work as an artist in digital form? Okay, what have you explored? What have you tried? So there are billion and 10 ways you can. Off the top of my head, I can just start listing out tools. Okay, from Photoshop to Illustrator to even CorelDRAW to Premiere Pro to After Effects. These are tools that can actually help. From Adobe XD, these are tools that can actually help, to add more vibe, so to speak, to your work as an artist. And finally, another way you can consider the use of technology is, apart from the fact that you're trying to transmit the feelings of what you have created, another way is you can make the audience your art. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. For instance, let me just give a random example. Say, for instance, you are exploring a story about tribal marks, right? And that's where things like performance art comes in. Now, a lot of times we as artists, we find it difficult to collaborate with other artists. We're always thinking about, and I can understand, the trust problem is a Nigerian problem, okay? But there's nothing wrong when you collaborate with a performance artist and then you collaborate with somebody who's going to record. So let me not get ahead of myself. My example is this. You are exploring a story on tribal marks, like local tribal marks, any tribe, you're just exploring tribal marks. And then you have decided that apart from painting on canvas, for instance, which is like the regular thing, apart from painting on canvas, you now want models or some certain people to walk in with fake tribal marks, and you want some other people to walk in with real tribal marks, and then you create a performance around that. Then you have somebody record that performance. You take the video of that performance, you animate it and turn it into another piece of art. Like, you see, the list is endless. You just keep expanding on what you already have. Finally, before I hand over the mic, I watched a movie, and in the movie, there was a gallerist who was trying to display the work of an artist. Now, this person's work was like a confession style. There was a booth. I don't know how many of us are Catholics. You understand the confession booth. So there was a booth. Nobody is at the other end, but you walk into the booth, you sit down, you say, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been so number of days since my last confession." And then you start confessing your deepest fears, your deepest secrets. And for some reason, because that artist has been able to, I don't know if we're familiar with this voice to text feature on our phones, where you can dictate to your phone and your phone would start writing what you are saying. Now, as people were confessing and saying all of these things, the confessions were being displayed on a screen outside for other people who were not confessing. But you would not see the person who entered the booth to confess. That's one use case. Like, the options are just endless. Let me stop here because I could just go on and on.
Yeah, thank you for that wonderful answer, Yemisi. I think one of the most important things that you touched on when you were giving the example about the tribal marks was that you can use one piece of art like to create many pieces of art. You can have that one piece, repackage it, sell it on different places. So we shouldn't look at, I mean, not just even art, everything that we do in our daily lives, we shouldn't look at it as a singular experience. Should try to look to get the most out of it and the best that we can get out of it. So thank you, MC. Tosin, in your question earlier, you touched on how there are different types of technology that could be applied in the art industry, not just digital, but also mechanical and different types. Could you please speak to that as to how you think different types of technology could be applied in the art industry?
Yeah, I mean, she just killed it. She really, really did. There's not much else to say. But what I would what I would say is, let me divide this into two sections. The first is that in Nigeria, in Africa, as she said, we're not exploratory enough. We tend to take what someone else has done and just continue using it. So, for example, we had a wax casting method. We had techniques that we used to carve to make things 200, 300 years ago. We still have our dye methods. How many artists are exploring how we can change these today? What these would look like in the 21st century? How many artists are looking at the basic tools we have, like a hammer and a nail, and questioning the form of not just what we make, but how we make what we make? The first thing about technology is a tool to transform. Technology is a tool that is used to transform things, to convey messages. And so can we use, so that's what they did with the 3D printer. The 3D printer was essentially it's essentially digital technology, 3D modeling, it is coding, and it is mechanical design and electrical design. And they put all those things together and said, well, how can we print things rather than spend, I don't know, thousands and thousands of pounds on manufacturing arms, on semiconductors, and all these kinds of bots in order to make things. So we have to rethink how we make things. So what are traditional forms of making, traditional forms of craftsmanship? How can we change the tooling system? I am really, really interested in this. And if anyone's interested in this, please shout me out. The second thing is, I think, our educational system. We need more educational institutions teaching the latest techniques, not just within art, but within design, and showing artists how they can make a sustainable living from their work. And so, for example, how many artists are doing things like projection mapping? Projection mapping is crazy, it's next level. Or spatial augmented reality, not augmented reality. Spatial augmented reality needs no screens in order to create digital components. Arduino, as she mentioned, is so incredible. Arduino can do so many different things and can add a different layer of interactivity to your work. Generative art and design. So she mentioned how many artists are learning coding, but one of the things some of my friends were learning, and I did a bit of it, was using Python and JavaScript to create digital code and digital artwork. It's possible. SketchUp is a virtual reality tool that allows you to draw within virtual reality. Or Touch Designer. Touch Designer is very similar to generative art or design, but it's no code or low code. It's a no code or low code tool, and it's free. Or participatory storytelling, as she mentioned earlier. How can you involve your audiences in the experience of your work? You need to go beyond, I have this and I want to say this, to how can I say it? And so really the question is on innovation. There's many different ways to innovate. And I think that that's the key, that we shouldn't bind ourselves to one form of creative expression. As creatives, we need to be trailblazers. We need to basically unshackle our mind of what we think art is and embrace new forms of making. For example, in the gallery space, I'm really curious. We aren't seeing many modular galleries in terms of architecture. What if the space of a gallery could change? What if it was modular? What if we had walls that could slide, or walls that could be brought down? What if our ceilings could be opened up to recreate the space? What if the gallery itself was part of the artwork? And many times it is, but how can we do that in different ways? So I would say that innovate to create would be what I would say. Innovate to create, question things, ask yourself, why is this like this? How could I make it differently? And yes, it takes work, and yes, it takes time, but there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of questions. And if you're curious and if you're passionate, there's a lot of things that we could do in the art industry. And I would say education, more education institutes, more tools, more accessibility, upskilling of artists and people, creating institutions and platforms that can do this is really the key to us transforming the industry in Nigeria and Africa. But I could go on, but I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think your answer was very insightful. I think we always forget that, we are in Nigeria and we are behind in the world. So there's so many things that we could do, but I think that the country sometimes does hold us back. But anyhow, we'll get there. We'll get there. So Matthew, um, I would like you to speak on how how I think in the art industry, there's the primary market and then there's the secondary market. And from your curatorial experience, I'd like you to speak on how you think technology can help to bridge that gap and make things simpler and easier for all parties involved.
Okay. I'm trying to pick where to start from because this is a question that we usually talk about. We have data for the secondary market in the Lagos arts world. So that for me not to go beyond the area that I think I know very well. But the data for the primary market is not readily available, right? It's I wouldn't, for the lack of a better word, it's dark. Well, you really don't know what's going on. The artist will not want to reveal the price is selling the work to the gallery because the gallery is actually the one who will put the value of the work out there, right? But when we have online platforms, which I mean, let's just go by the word technology so that I will not be hammering on social media. With the use of technology, we can have transparent data for how these works are sold. I mean, their movement from the primary market to the secondary market, and you have their sales history. This helps in turn in terms of transparent valuation of the works when auctions come around. So because if you don't have the sales history of the work, the provenance and all these things, by the time the works get to the auction market, then there will be argument and debate on, okay, how much would this work go for? What is the provenance? So before I forget, there is this Carnegie Museum of Art or something thereabouts abroad who used AI to actually track the provenance of works. It's called Art Track Initiative. Yeah. So they had their own AI that can actually track the provenance, the sales history of work, who has bought this work, where has this work been, how long ago was this work bought. So all these things helps in terms of valuation of the works, and this can only be possible with the help of technology right now. So it helps in terms of transparency, and now it bridges the gap between the primary market and the secondary market because you are not looking at, okay, who bought this work first, and somebody tell you have to wait for the next 5 months before you get an answer. But with the help of this technology now, you in a day or two, you have your answer. Okay, this work was with this collector. From this collector, it moved to this collector. So that gap is becoming so minimal, right? And then you also have there's this thing I read some time ago where a museum also actually developed an AI machine that helped in terms of art authentication. When you feed the work into that AI machine, it authenticates the work and say this work is 80% done by this artist. So it helps in terms of originality because the originality and authentication is one of the steps that they put works of art through before they put them up for auctions, right? So with these technologies, you're seeing that the shady, for the lack of a better word, the shady valuation, the shady data that we had before is now reducing. You're now having transparent data. You can see that, okay, this work was sold for this price between that time and now. Because of the event that has happened around the artist, the work should go for this value right now. So technology is making this very easy because you have platforms like Artsy that have the sales record of works. You have which Vascan is already on the right path for now. There are other platforms like that are making it very, very easy like that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Matthew. Thank you. So Yemisi, I'm going to come to you. Following up from your previous answer, I think, you were talking about how artists don't, go out there, put themselves out there. They don't experiment enough with technology. So it's a bit of a two-parter. My question to you. The first part is, do you have any fears that technology may be a danger in the future? Like, yes, we're saying technology is good, it's good, but do you have any fears that, yes, it may be its advantage? And also, or and also, where do you see any new developments like NFTs, digital art, the way they've taken over the modern art world in the last couple of years. Do you see anything new coming soon?
I will be careful to say NFT and digital art has taken over. No, it has not. In fact,
I
the
stand corrected.
category. Thank you. And I said that because you see, we need to be careful of absolutes. We need to be careful of the kind of words that we use, how we describe situations. You see, words frame reality, and the things we say kind of imposes on us a certain mindset to have. So where we go about with the narratives that, oh, NFT has taken over, digital art has taken over, we sort of discard how long it took us to get here. We discard the rich history of what art is and what it means and what it will continue to mean. And then we forget that art is not just the painting or the sculpture or the tangibles that we can touch. We forget that art is culture, by perpetuating such narratives. Now, having said that, the only thing to fear is fear itself. When you're afraid of new inventions and innovations, it is that fear that would actually make you not want to study that invention, understand that invention, and find a way to make it work for you. Remember during COVID, the narrative was that, we will all be out of jobs. Please tell me, how many of us are out of jobs because of COVID? Because, we are now working from home. Now AI is now taking over. Please, can someone point me in the direction of any hospital in Nigeria where a robot is administering injections to people? You see, I wouldn't want us to be ignorant. Let me speak like I'm in church. I don't want us to be ignorant of the devices of the devil. But jokes apart, I would not want us to be ignorant of. I mean, why are you afraid that technology would cause more harm when you've not even explored the positive aspects of it? It is when you know a thing through and through that you can say, oh, okay, we have explored this thing to this certain extent, and we have discovered that if we continue to use it in this certain way, this will be the repercussion. You see, there's always cause and effect. There's nothing that is absolute. There's nothing that is absolutely positive. There's nothing that is absolutely negative. It's the dual nature of being on earth. It's the dual nature of the earth itself, the yin and yang, the balance of things. So you cannot just like have sweeping blanket statements like that. Because you see, I said something earlier. I said we don't like to explore. And it's because we're comfortable with what we know. Okay, so remember that NFTs were quite popular during COVID, and it felt like, NFTs are the in thing now. If you're not doing an NFT, please, can you tell me how many NFT exhibitions we've had since COVID? Compared to how many physical exhibitions of real artworks that we can see the artists, we can see everybody since then. New ideas will still come that are even crazier than NFTs, but the world will not end. We only have to brace up. All right, understand what we are dealing with. And in order to understand something, you have to actually seek to understand it. You have to actually be invested. Okay, how does this thing work? Okay, if it works and this is a negative effect, what can I do to counterbalance that? I think that should be the mindset change that we should push for. I personally do not see any challenge that the use of technology would present that cannot be solved. Let me cite this one example, and then I would hand over the mic. If it happens that the one major challenge we are thinking about is, what if there is theft? During 2020, during COVID, so many people reported that their artworks were stolen and minted right from under their noses, and it took them long to know and all of that. And you would realize that initially there was nothing they could do about it until gradually there were checks and balances. There were things that were put in place to, arrest, so to speak, the sale of stolen artworks. So by and large, there's always going to be a counterbalance for whatever challenge comes up, with the use of technology in artworks. And I think that in itself should give us hope that, there's something that can always be done about anything. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, EMC, for that correction. I think it's very important that we all seek to embrace new things and new technologies. Fear is fear itself, and you are very correct. So thank you very much, EMC. So Tosin, following up from your answer as well, I think I'd even maybe just give the floor to you. Where would you like to see art go in Nigeria in the near future? What changes would you like to see made, or like where do you want the art direction in Nigeria to go?
Wow, what a question. Where do I start? So I would say I'm a systems thinker. I try to think in systems. So I would say starting from the very bottom of the system, I would say the war against art in somewhere like Nigeria and Africa is a battle of utility versus beauty. Both of them must exist. So to go biblical, that there was a really interesting scripture that says God made trees that were good to look at and trees that were good to eat. And both are absolutely necessary. The problem is in Nigeria and Africa, it's what are you going to eat? What are you going to eat without appreciating that beauty is a fundamental part of human existence. We need beauty. It provides meaning, it provides security, it provides safety, it provides religious symbolism. It does a lot for us. And so I would say we need a mindset shift in art and our understanding of the value of art. Things can be commoditized, but things aren't valuable simply because of commoditization. So there needs to be value ascribed to the value, to value just itself. It is valuable because it is valuable. It is valuable because it means something. So I would say that. The second thing I would say is STEAM. We often talk about STEM education. We need to add art to it. I spoke about how early technology was influenced by art. The first automata, which were basically the first kinds of robots 300 years ago, were practically sculptures. They were moving sculptures. That is artwork. Organic chemistry has played a role in the creation of art. It will continue to. Generative design is behind some of the crazy technologies that we see today, so in cars, in manufacturing, in night designs, and so on and so forth. Artists have always been at the forefront of technological disruption. And so we need artists, we need people who are free spirits, who are creatives, who can think about why does this work like this? Why is it important? How can we reinterpret it? We need these people and we need to empower them. Yes, they might not fit into the confines we think of in terms of an academic discipline or a professional discipline, but we need artists and we need to empower these people. So STEAM, adding the arts to the STEM, is really, really important. I would also say for artists, we need to be free. I had a really interesting conversation with two artists a couple of months ago, and we were speaking about why AI art was bad. And one of the things that came up was AI art has no appreciation of form, structure, or composition. So it does things that, technically speaking, are bad art. But guess what? The average person sees them who isn't in the art world and thinks that's really, really cool. And it became an uncomfortable question of, normally artists are the people telling people that they need to be open-minded, they need to be free-spirited. And who are you to tell someone what to do with their lives or tell someone this is good or bad? But yet here artists are saying this is good art, this is bad art. And so it means one of two things, that either A, we have to accept that definitions exist, or there needs to be rigid balance and structure, or it means that we need to be open-minded ourselves. And I would say it's probably a combination of both of them. And so artists need to be willing to embrace new technology. We need to be willing to use new technology. We need to be willing So artists need to be willing to have their own studios, for example, to be entrepreneurs. Artists will need to be willing to be project managers. Artists need to be willing to, for example, there are artists at Apple, there are artists at Nike, there are artists. I've been privileged to have a mentor in Meta Reality Labs. There are artists at Meta Reality Labs. There are architects at Meta Reality Labs. Artists need to go beyond I'm a sculptist, I'm a painter, to thinking how can they and how can their skill set impact industry? How can it impact sectors? I'm not telling you not to work in galleries, not to exhibit your art. I'm saying, how else can your skill set be transformed? How else can it be of use? Now, that's not for everyone. I suspect that that's going to be for a lot of people. I would also say I want to see more art schools. I want to see more art schools at the intersection of technology, science. I want to see an MIT Media Labs. Oh my God, I want to see an MIT Media Labs open up in Africa. If anyone is familiar with the work of Neri Oxman, with the work of others, I'm really interested in bio art, using cells, using cell and organic structures to create art, to create sculptures. Had a couple of friends that are doing things like that. Haven't been able to do it yet because, God help me, I was lazy. But honestly speaking, we need bio art, we need bio design, we need people questioning materiality. We have so many resources in Nigeria. Why aren't we looking at these as artists, gathering data and saying, can they be used to create something different? Can they be used to do something different? I'm working on a couple of projects with people that are doing things like this, and we're still at the ideation phase, but this is exactly what we need as artists. We need to be willing to trailblaze. We need to be willing to be innovators. There isn't that much difference between the entrepreneur, the scientist, and the artist. They're all different sides of the same cube or three-sided shape. But in Nigeria, and to be fair, in many places, artists like to stay in their comfort zone. We need to break outside the box and we need to think, what else can I do? How else can I tackle this? I'd like to see more research, more thinking about the problems, more asking deeper questions, not just asking questions that people feel are okay to ask, but asking questions and asking factual. I mean, you can be wrong. I think also being willing to be wrong is a very important part of art. If you say my way is the only way and it has to be this way, you need to question why. It could be, you could be right, but you could also be wrong. And so we need more thinking like that. We need better research methods, we need better engagement, and then we need better tools. And we need more people willing to explore those tools. So I would say that's how I would like the industry to change. I could go into a long rant about it, but those are like four ways that I see that we could provide change, and we could begin to do so even from today. Crowdfunding, I would say, is a really good tool. Yes, I know something like Arduino, it costs what an Arduino kit costs £100, $100, really expensive, but crowdfunding, work with someone. We're talking about blockchain technology, fractional ownership. What can we do? How can we create tools? How can we work together to provide access to tools that one of us couldn't by ourselves? And so these are the things we need to begin to think about. But yeah, this is what I would say in terms of change.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Tosin. It's like I think we need to make you the arts minister or something. But thank you for that answer. It seems we've lost track of time. I'd cede the floor to the room. If you have any questions or comments for our speakers, please. Any questions, please? I guess maybe all the answers were very clear and concise. Questions, please. Okay, okay then. All right then. It seems that we have run out of time. I really wish that wasn't the case. This has been very, very insightful. I thank each and every one of our speakers for joining and giving a what is the true value of an art? I don't know which one of our speakers would like to take this question.
Oh, I'm not. I thought I was on mute.
Let's pass it to Matthew.
Auntie, you spoke first, so please, you have the floor.
All right. Well, we can't actually value a work of art, I mean, in an abstract way. I mean, I'm using the word abstract there. It's not in terms of abstract art. I mean, when we're not seeing the art. So, but there are some things that guides how works of art are valued. Number one, the pedigree of the artist. What has the artist done in the industry? Where has he been? How many residencies has he done? How many exhibitions has it done? What is the artist's impact in the society? What is the artist's impact in the industry? What is the artist's impact in terms of material
Oh,
exploration? You understand, how has the artist helped to evolve the art landscape in a lot of ways? I can mention some names. If you are looking at watercolor exploration in Nigeria, then you have to start looking at people like Sam Variety, who pioneered the use of watercolor when oil color as a medium was strong. So in terms of that, when you are putting Sam Variety's watercolor in terms of valuation, you know that you are getting a stronger value because of impact, right? So you can't just value a work of art when you are not looking at the art with all the context around it. Do you understand? I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, Tosin said the value of your heart. So whatever you
Um,
place.
yeah, just to come in there, he said something really interesting, and this is a question I suppose for us to think about. We have fractional ownership, so multiple people owning an artwork. So how does the value of an artwork go up? Now, if there are shares in the company, it goes up based on continued impact, continued products, continued production. How does that happen with artwork? In terms of blockchain, one of the problems we've been seeing in the art market is speculation, people flipping it. What a smart contract could do with digital art, for example, or even with real art, if you have sensors, you could write a smart contract that prevents someone from selling it up until within a certain time frame. So let's say they have to keep it for 5 years, so they can't just flip it quickly. They can't flip it first thing they get. They have to keep it for 5 years. They have to keep it for 10 years because artwork is essentially the same as property in real estate. So if you see something happening in real estate where someone buys a house and then in 2 years or in 1 year they sell it, usually it loses value. And people wonder, well, why did they sell it? What's wrong with it? So confidence is everything in the art market. And we need to become more financially aware of the art market in Nigeria. I would also say the reason I said the value of your heart is that someone will see an artwork that doesn't mean anything to another person, but it means something to them because human beings are emotional. And so value is valuable and we need to respect that. But there is also the technical aspect, as Mr. Matthews said. How do we do it? I think how we do it is people need to come together. We need to come together. We need to think of a plan. We need to look at the system in Nigeria, in Africa, and we need to begin to look at ways to pinpoint systems change. What can we do? So, for example, in education, what can we do? In financing of the art market, what can we do? In providing tools and skills, what can we do? It takes time, but it's possible. People need to come together. People need to be willing to think of what can we do to make a difference? Many times people are operating in silos, and as long as someone stands alone, you can't do anything. But when you're together, when you have a strategy, when you have a plan, and you're willing to do it for 10 years, 15 years, there's a lot you can do. So it's strategy. Strategy is the key. Strategy and unity is the key to changing the arts sector. That's what I would say.
All right then. Thank you, Tosin. Yeah, Missy, would you also like to answer as well?
well, is there anything else that needs to be said that has not been said? I doubt it highly. Well, but I'm just going to add this, drawing from a comment that someone left that material exploration, there's no space for it. At the risk of sounding cliche and sounding insensitive, I'll start by saying that when there is a will, there is a way. But on the flip side, I also understand that infrastructure is very important, which is what Tosin has really harped on. For instance, there was this, I'm trying to remember her name now. She's an artist that she does bio art, and she grows roots into this very delicate structure. And then she's starting to make clothes out of those roots, you know. And it started from her just in her kitchen, experimenting with a small tray. Before you know it, she experimented with something bigger, until, she had enough noise about it. Now, which brings me to why I want to attempt to say this. I know that we are very challenged. However, we will not get out of our challenges until we stop using our challenges as an excuse to not explore what is possible. If for somebody who wants to explore with materials, the small space that you have, your living room, yeah, it's a rented apartment, but you can, for instance, maybe it's a material that is very messy. You can put tarpaulin or used flex banner on the floor, just to experiment what you want to experiment, so that you don't mess the whole place up. But you see, experimenting is what helps you to learn. You will learn in the process. You will discover new ways to try things. You will discover new materials, right? Like, for instance, let me just use myself as an example. A couple of months ago, I saw a big tree that had been cut down, and I harvested the bark of the tree. I just harvested it. When there's somebody I used to follow home back then, and when I carried the bark, 2 nylon full of tree bark, into his car, the guy looked at me and shook his head like, "Why are you carrying dirt to your house?" And I smiled, because I know why I harvested it. I know what I'm trying to explore. So by the time I get home, I've packed broken glass from a construction site before. Why? Because I want to experiment something. Now, a lot of my experiments sometimes don't give me the results I want, but I'm always happy that I experimented, because at least now I know that that's not the best way to do it. Now I know that, okay, there's a different option to do it, right? So many things, so many things. I think that the biggest challenge we have is the challenge of limiting beliefs. Once you think you cannot do it, there's no magic on this planet. Even if somebody gives you 15 acres of land, your brain will not go there that you want to explore art or do any experiments anywhere. So, but when you start small, and then another thing is, when you start small, please find the story, find the why. It's one thing to just go online and post the picture of your artwork, or post yourself when you are painting. It's another thing to tell the story. It's another thing to carry the emotions. The lady that I said that I don't know why I can't remember her name. She just started by saying, "Oh, sustainable art." Even if it wasn't sustainable, somebody got interested, somebody funded her project. Yes, I know she's not in Nigeria, but what I'm saying is that you never can tell. You never can tell. But if you keep telling yourself day 1, day 2, day 50, day 100, that, "Oh, there's no opportunity, I don't have space, I live in a face me, I slap you, I cannot do this, my landlord will throw me out." You have friends that have studio spaces that you can liaise with. There are options to things. Please don't limit yourself. You never can tell the day somebody will come and say, "Oh, there's a grant for experimental artists." You will not put your hand on your head and cry that, "Oh my God, I did not experiment when I had the time." I think, let me just stop here, because I'll just continue to talk. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was a very good answer. Thank you very much. I just wanted to add, like, there's opportunities will come, but you have to be ready. Like, they won't just fall in your lap. The work has to show. It won't just come out of nowhere, but it will meet you when you are ready. And it's very important that we explore, we find that balance, we push the boundaries, just like all our speakers have said. And yes, we may have limiting resources, we may have some limitations, but we should still find ways to push, to find ways to make it out. Because we're all in Nigeria and we are finding ways to push. So we just put that effort into our craft, try to perfect it, find the rough edges, smoothing them out, and all of that. Like, it is very, very important that we take our craft as seriously. Like for people that are artists, it is work. You do your work, I mean, just as well. You take it serious, you plan it out for the year, you have strategies, you have plans, and all of that. Put that into your creativity as well. Just because it's a creative talent does not mean that you cannot put structure around it. Does not mean that you cannot plan. Does not mean that you cannot, make the best out of it. So yes, thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. This was very riveting and it was a wonderful experience. I'm very grateful to our speakers, and I'm sure we would love to have you again sometime. Thank you very much for gracing us with your presence. Thank you. To the people that are on the call, thank you for attending. We're grateful for having you with us. We'll share the recordings and the details of the webinar with everyone. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
The pleasure is mine.
All right, bye.